the agreement between Iran and the United States has been released, and even allies of the president are trashing it. Quote, an American surrender, a grave capitulation, and the worst foreign policy blunder in decades.
We went into Iran and rescued a downed pilot. We had total control over that country. We were winning militarily and economically. And when you are in that position, you negotiate from strength. You don't give people money. You don't give them access. What are they going to do with the money, Sandra? You know that Iran is going to use this for nefarious purposes. We all know that. The regime has not changed.
The point I'll start from is this total mischaracterization that Donald Trump lost the war. First of all, the one objective, the strategic objective that the president was very clear about from day one was that we did not want them to procure a nuclear weapon. In that deal, one of those 14 points is Iran coming to the table and saying, we will not.
Can I ask you a very simple question?
I let you finish.
Go ahead, because I want you to ask and say, was that in the JCPOA or not?
I let you finish. There we go. So that's in one of those points, right? Is that we don't get a nuclear weapon, a nuclear armed Iran. That was the one strategic objective that the president had going into this, and that's victory. And so I don't know why.
Can I ask you a simple question? Was that in the JCPOA or not? Was it word for word or not?
Actually, Bakar, I'm glad you asked. The JCPOA actually just gave a landing strip for the Iranians
it literally
to
said
get
the same
to a nuclear weapon.
So
it didn't. This is total and complete. We will not produce, and we will.
Hold on a second.
We will destroy our enriched uranium.
Hold on a second, Tim. And before you jump in, Stephen. Before you jump in, Stephen. The JCPOA said that Iran will under no circumstances ever obtain a nuclear weapon. And in fact, this deal contemplates that, because what it says is that Iran reiterates what they say has been their longstanding stance, that they would not have a nuclear weapon. Now, I think what you're referring to is the fact that the JCPOA had sunset provisions for the limits that they had on nuclear enrichment. That is true.
That's right.
However, you also have to acknowledge that this deal has absolutely zero provisions when it comes to the fate of Iran's nuclear enrichment program and its nuclear weapons.
No, that's not true, Abby. This deal is performance-based.
But what are the markers? But what are the markers, Tim?
If the Iranians start producing a nuclear weapon again, if there's evidence of that, they have to allow the proper regulatory authorities in the country.
But hold on.
And if they report that something otherwise is happening, we'll pick back up.
But hold on a second. This deal doesn't say Iran will never be able to enrich uranium in its borders. You know what it says? It says that we'll determine at another date the fate of enrichment in Iran, which suggests that this deal is contemplating that Iran could enrich. Now, President Trump was even more explicit in an interview a couple of days ago with the New York Times, and he said, yeah, maybe we might have a cap. Maybe it's around 3%. The same cap that existed in the JCPOA. So look, I get the sunset provisions, but when you have a document that it basically says, we'll figure it out later, you can't tell me that those are benchmarks. That's just kicking the can down the road.
So I would say this, that I think it's false to say that that they weren't developing nuclear weapons, because they were. So whatever Obama did, it certainly
That's not what I said. In fact, to be completely clear, I said they were further. They were further away in 2015 than they are.
Still not true. That part isn't true either.
So they were. We know that they were moving very aggressively ahead with developing a nuclear weapon, and that was one of the greatest dangers on the planet. So for you all to say he accomplished nothing, I think is absurd.
What did he accomplish?
We've moved them, and by the way, Trump has been very clear.
What did he accomplish? Be clear with, what did we accomplish?
We have denuclearized.
No, we have not.
Can
we talk about
you don't even have their nuclear. There is no one.
And Trump
based upon what? Based on what?
If they continue to try to develop a nuclear weapon, we will bomb them again.
Right.
Well, so because the bombing worked.
Well, one of the realities is the one difference right now, practically because of the bombing, is that currently, as far as we know, the centrifuges inside Iran are not spinning. That is to say, they were under Obama, and I agree with you. I think there was a lot of ambiguity, but I think that also, I think we should maybe just leave the JCPOA behind. I think it was part of a different world. For me, it was a world before October 7th. I've said this on this show before. Yeah. I think October 7th changed the rules of the game in the Middle East in terms of geopolitics. a JCPOA type agreement just cannot survive. In fact, the reason I think we got into this war, and as you know, I'm critical and agree with the president in terms of I think there was a strategic rationale for going in at some point, but I think that the execution and the planning was badly bungled, and we're paying the cost right now.
So one of the things, Keon, that we've talked about with you is the ballistic missile component of this. And I just want to play what the administration had been saying about ballistic missiles and what they're saying now. Listen.
They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America.
We're going to destroy their Navy, we're going to destroy their Air Force, and we are going to significantly destroy their missile launchers so they can never hide behind these things to get a nuclear weapon.
This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes.
Well, what am I going to do? Am I going to let Saudi Arabia have missiles, but they can't have them? Yes, sir. Doesn't work that way, you know? It doesn't work that way. And missiles aren't the problem. Missiles they hurt a little location, but they don't blow up the planet.
I mean, what can I tell you? It's look. I mean, planning and look, knowing to do to do the right thing is one thing, but knowing how to do it right is a different thing.
That's very true.
And you know, and I'm in the position that it was. You know, maybe it wasn't the right time to do it, but at some point I felt that the war was inevitable. And I think this is kicking down the can down the road, this agreement.
How has Trump, I mean, the whole rationale, just to be clear, actually, even more so than the nuclear rationale, because, you know, last year when they did the bombing, it was actually to bury the nuclear material, right? The rationale for this operation was to take the ballistic missile threat off the table so that they could no longer use ballistic missiles as a shield for their nuclear program. Now you have the president saying, well, why can't they have ballistic missiles? Everybody else in the neighborhood has them. How do they justify that at this stage?
I think it just shows there was no clear objective from the beginning. I think the president and the administration sold this war in very large terms. And there's a middle ground. There are people who will say, look, we understand that Iran is a threat, but the president added so much to it. I mean, let's talk about, we're not even talking about the human rights element that was added at the beginning. Right. He created a moral argument for going into Iran. He wanted an entire regime change. And I would now ask, are the people in Iran safer, more freer, better off, or have we completely lost that because we used it?
The regime was killing thousands and thousands of people.
It's the same, but the regime has a regime change.
We cut off one head and another one's sprouted up.
The regime has not changed. It actually got younger and angrier, and
we'll see. We'll see.
But it's a theocracy, and you can't bomb your way to a democracy. It doesn't make sense.
But regime change was never this president's objective.
Yes, it was.
He literally said on the night of the
Israelis, maybe, but that was never one of the objectives of the president.
We've gone through this before. He said on the night of the bombing, the people of Iran, now is your time.
Now is your time.
You take back your country.
Correct.
He said then the next week.
Yeah,
I want to have. He said on the next week. He said on the next week, I want to have a role in picking the next leader of Iran. I think I can be the one to do that because I've killed all the other ones.